Hey,
Hey,
welcome.
everybody.
Hi,
Thank you.
everyone.
Hi.
So let's have you guys introduce yourselves before we get into Migration Hub. Sylhia, do you want to start off?
Sure. Thank you. Kunal, I'm Saliha Haider. I'm a Senior Partner Solutions Architect here at Amazon Web Services. Over to you, Hasnat.
Thanks, Alia. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm glad the hat picked us for the next presentation. I am Hasnat Naveed. I'm a Senior Product Manager here in AWS EC2, and we'll be talking about Migration Hub study recommendations today.
Welcome, Saraya. Welcome, Hasnat. And I'll just remind the audience that we have other experts in the chat as well answering questions. So as you learn more about the service, if you have questions, please put in there. We will have an opportunity to ask these questions as well as you can get your answers from other experts in the chat.
So
Awesome.
let's begin. Tell us more about what is Migration Hub strategy and the recommendations.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Kunal. So as Shashank was saying that it's really difficult to know when you're looking at your environment, your workloads, which are on-premise, or even they might be in the cloud, to figure out how could you migrate and modernize the whole workload, right? Because customers can have application workloads consisting of hundreds of applications, hundreds of servers, and there's really no one person or one team that would know the whole story. On top of that, when you add the problem of it's great to move to the cloud, but how do you actually do that? How do you basically figure out what servers, what applications to move to, and what fashion? The problem becomes pretty daunting, especially for somebody or a company who has never done that before. So the idea behind Migration Hub's strategy recommendation service is to help alleviate this problem of mass analysis and recommendation of customers on how to migrate and modernize their application workloads into the cloud.
Got it. So two questions that come to my mind is how did customers do this before, and what is their benefits of using it now?
Yeah, so usually the customers, they would essentially have to figure out what are their applications, databases running on in their company, right? And let's say you're an e-commerce company, you would have applications that are going, talking to your warehouses that are shipping things, application software running in those warehouses, your applications and services running, that are doing shipping controller notifications, tracking with your carriers and all that. So you can imagine that applications tend to be growing very, very quickly and very significantly. Then you have, okay, how many servers do I have? What are the servers that are running what applications? Now, once you have that whole list of all the applications, what do I do, right? Because I don't know what type of application those are, what frameworks or dependencies they have, what OS they might be running into. The list goes on, right? And in order to figure out what to migrate, you also have to figure out what is it that you want to migrate first. If you have 100 applications, you likely wouldn't migrate 100 applications on day one, right? So it becomes a pretty daunting, time-consuming task. You need subject matter experts that you may not have. You need data on all the applications and servers that you may not have. You need to know what is the ideal pathway to migrate or modern application. Do you want to put it into EC2 or ECS or something else? Remains a question, right? So all of this combined is a manual effort. And that was the problem that we were trying to solve with my strategy recommendations, that we wanted to automate this whole analysis, deep analysis of your application and databases so that we can present to you a full picture in a very quick and fast-paced manner. And that's the idea behind strategy recommendations, that we'll have you run an appliance in your environment. It can be production or pre-production, it's customer's choice. We'll do a full scan of your servers, your applications, what environment they're running into. And as we do that, we will build an understanding of your applications and environment. Once we have built that, we will also have the customer tell us what is it that they want to do. Do they want to move to the cloud very quickly, right? Because they might be bleeding money running a warehouse, or a server farm, they want to close that. The contracts might be going away, so they want to move to the cloud quickly. Or they might be in a situation where they really want to leverage the cloud functionality, so they want to modernize their applications, right? The old applications that they have, monolithic applications that they may have, or databases, they just want to move them into cloud native architecture, right? So we'll have our customers give us a very high level input into what they really want to do. Now, once we have your data of your environment, as well as data about what user test you want to do and your end goals, you combine the two, we generate recommendations for each application, each server, what you can do with those applications. You could rehost them, replatform them, refactor them, as well as we tell you what are the other services and tools that you can use to achieve those migration and modernization pathways. So we simply don't tell you where to go. We also tell you how to get there. Now, that's not all. There's more. And other things that we do is, as we scan your applications and databases, if you provide us access to your source code for a particular application, we are able to scan that. And as we scan your source code, then we would know what are the sort of anti-patterns that you might have to go resolve if you were to move, let's say, from Windows to Linux. Let's say your application has one dependency on Windows registry to store certain attributes or certain configurations. Well, you won't have that when you move into a Linux world, right? So we will tell you upfront, hey, this is something you would want to refactor if you go refactor your application. Similarly, for databases, if you're moving from, let's say, SQL to Aurora DB, then there are times where certain attributes that are in one type of database might not be the same in the other one, right? Int 32 versus int 64 is a classical example, or vice versa, actually. Now, in those cases, there could be data corruption that can happen. So we let you know, hey, if you're going from source to destination, what could be your database level anti-patterns that you also want to consider as you go and move into the cloud.
That was a lot, and that's really cool. Actually, if I can summarize quickly my understanding, if I'm a customer and I'm already running something on-prem, we provide a tool to help analyze that application. And if you have source code, you will also analyze that .NET and Java, and then provide a list of recommendations on how to migrate. I think this is fantastic. A lot of customers find that jump hard to make, and if there's a recommendation list, that's fantastic. But we also know that customers have applications running in different platforms, right, like Windows and Linux. So do we support all of these, subset of these?
Absolutely, that's a great question again. So we recognize that with almost a majority of the customers or users out there, right, they might not be tied to one type of ecosystem. So we totally expect customers to be running Windows and Linux in one environment or the other. And due to that reason, from the get-go of our GA release that we have recently done, we support both Windows and Linux environments. So if you have a Windows server or a Linux server, you can scan either one or all of those via the collector that you're going to deploy, and it'll scan all the applications running on each of those servers and be able to recommend accordingly to your applications and the environment that they run into.
The question I have, how does this take advantage of or how does it take into account the business needs of our customers, right? The reasons why they might want to be doing migration or modernization.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, when you're looking to migrate and modernize, there's always a business aspect behind it, right? Now, that might be that you're looking at licensing cost reduction because you're paying a lot for licensing of your current ecosystem. You might be looking in a situation where you have a lot of operational overhead with managing your environment, and you might be looking at ending up in ecosystems which are AWS managed. At the same time, as I was saying earlier, you might be looking at simply shutting down your data center very quickly and just move first and then modernize it later on. And we see a bunch of our customers do that too, right? Or we may be looking at, customers may be looking at other things like that. So the way we support this is that as you run through and walk through our UI console in Migration Hub, we basically have you input your business goals, which basically is a prioritized list of 4 major questions: whether you want to do license cost reduction, whether you want to move into the cloud faster, whether you want to reduce your operational overhead and move into cloud native technologies and things like that. Then at the same time, At an application level, we also ask our customers if their wishes are to end up in AWS managed services versus self-managed services. And to a certain degree, they can choose what kind of target destinations they want to end up into. We do the same thing on database layer as well, that they can choose that, hey, they do have a preference to end up in MySQL or Aurora DB or something like that. So as we scan their environment and we generate recommendations and viable pathways for each application, we have that insight given to us by the customer as well of what their business and technical goals are. So basically, we merge the two together and present to the customers a curated recommendation depending on what is it that they want to achieve, and not something that is hard coded on our side. So we basically account for your end goals and tweak our recommendations and prioritize a list of viable pathways for each application according to our customers' input.
Oh, I would love to see this in play. Do we have something where we
know.
can show everyone who's watching how this works?
Absolutely, that's why we are here. So I'll hand it over to Saleha, who will do a walkthrough of the console, and we'll talk about some of the recommendations as well.
Yeah, I'm totally sold, but I have questions around how do we install these tools? What tools do we use to do this? And
The dashboard, I click on Get Started and the dashboard launches. All right. So there are 3 steps from end to end in this process, as Hasnath explained earlier. So we configure the data sources, right? So the first and foremost is configuring the data sources. Second, setting up the preferences, your preferences. And third and final step is going through the recommendations on which migration and modernization strategy is being recommended for each one of the workloads as well as the servers. What is the relevant tooling and what are the viable options? So for the data collection, application discovery service is a prerequisite. Once you have your servers discovered in ADS, the strategy recommendation application data collector client must be able to collect data remotely from these servers. There are 2 ways you can provide data to strategy recommendations. Either use a registered data collector method, or you can use the import template and provide the required bits of information. Wait a minute, here's the fun part. As part of this, I have an option to ask for source code analysis for modernization. I can specify Git repository as an option. I can choose to specify databases for database analysis as well. So once the data sources are configured and the collector registration is successful, you're all set to move on to the next step, which is configuring your preferences. So for example, I can choose application preference being AWS managed or self-managed, or I can even say no preference. So these preferences are actually taken into consideration when we are actually generating a recommendation. For instance, let's say my first preference is license reduction. So then most of the recommendations will be based on what should be the best strategy for me to reduce the licensing cost. So at this point, the analysis process kicks off just as soon as I add in my preferences. So once strategy recommendation completes the analysis of all of the different workloads and servers, as you have specified, taking into account your business goals and preferences you have provided, it comes up with a list and a set of recommendations on not only the migration and modernization strategy, but also the tools that will help you get there. That's the beauty of this service. Wait, there's more. If I have specified source code repositories to analyze source code for my applications, then I also get to know what are the anomalies or incompatibilities that I will need to resolve before I can modernize my workload. Wow. Now let's walk through. So I've done those steps for you. Let's go through the recommendations here. So I'm here on the summary tab of the recommendations page. it shows the information grouped for each strategy here. Right here, you can see rehost, replatform, and refactor. Also, the information is grouped at the server level here within the service tab, right? So let's go through one at a time. Okay, we'll talk about the anti-patterns in just a minute. Okay, let's go through application components. So I'm going to choose, so let's take so at a high level, we can see that this is these are the application components, and I'm going to choose one application, and let's dive into that application a little bit further. Okay, so let me go choose an application here. I'm going to choose Nope Commerce, which is an IIS based application, and I'm going to click on details. All right, so the recommendation here is to refactor this application. Like, that's a strategy, right? And so it shows all of this high level information at this point, right? And then please note here, fun part, the tool, Porting Assistant for .NET. Since Porting Assistant for .NET can be used to convert .NET Framework applications to .NET Core and move to Linux, this conforms with my goal of license reduction, and hence this is the top recommendation. And here you see the anti-patterns. Let's talk about this. Okay, so anti-patterns are a list of known issues found in each application or database for which we were given access to, like, I gave access to source code by specifying my Git repository. Remember the data sources step we talked about there at the very beginning, right? So for example, you may have an anti-pattern on Windows registry, right? Please note, it'll say that you are relying on Windows registry. Please note the advice here is that you should refactor your application to stop the dependency on Windows registry, as it's not going to work when we port it to Linux, right? And that is the report right here. There'll be multiple other things like that as being recommended from your application that has been evaluated, right? So let's go navigate here to strategy options here. All right, so I see that for Nope Commerce, the recommended strategy, as you see in green over here, the strategy is refactor. However, there are a bunch of other strategies in here, like, for example, for refactor, there are a bunch of different options, right? For replatform, sorry, it's saying the destination, you could replatform it to AWS Elastic Beanstalk, and you can use this tool specified here, Windows Web Application Migration Assistant. So all of the different viable pathways are mentioned here along with the tools. How nice is that? Like, so now you also have an option to change your preference here and then reanalyze your workload. If you choose, let's say, any other preference, you wanted to choose any other preference, you can set it as a preference here, and that way, when you get to finally exporting this report, you will get that override inside as well. It will also work as a feedback loop to fine tune our recommendations priority, right? So here, next tab here, right here, source code configuration, I can see that the Git and there is support for Git as well as Git Enterprise. Let's go back to the summary page here. So we're going to go back to strategy recommendations and go into the summary view here. Now we have the servers tab here. So here you can see it is specifying how many servers, of what type, what kind, end of support, all that kind of great information is listed in here, right? And even the strategy will be listed here. Like, for example, for the server, Linux server, it's saying rehost, and it's saying EC2. So with that, the last preference here, I'm sorry, the last tab here is the preferences tab. And let's look at it for a little bit. Okay, so here are the preferences I provided in the very beginning as I went through my 3-step process there. So the license cost reduction, as you can see, is at the very top and the very beginning. And then there are others, and I can always choose to swap this, edit this, and reanalyze all of the data that I have provided. It's going to come up with new and updated recommendations based on whatever I choose. So also I have an opportunity to export and download the report for viewing it offline. With that, I would like to ask each of you to go ahead and try out strategy recommendations today. Thank you very much.
Great
This
demo.
is really cool. Yeah. It's
I
like
just
having
had
your own personal consultant, right? Who's going to
exactly.
analyze everything and tell you, here's the recommendation. That's, yeah, it's really cool.
How long does that take, though? How long does that process take to analyze and give that strategy to you?
That's a good question. So it all depends on a bunch of parameters, obviously, because you're deploying a collector in your environment, and the collector is going to go scan and hit your servers one after the other. But usually we have seen that even with like hundreds of servers, it takes in a matter of minutes or hours to scan all of your servers one after the other and then generate the report. Takes maybe a few more minutes after the fact. So that's pretty quick compared to having to go analyze and scan your servers and applications manually. I think this is going to be extremely fast compared to other options that people have had in the past on the table. Now, having said that, you can also have the option to look at when you're running the analysis, when network traffic is less on in your environment, or if you want to beef up your network bandwidth, right? All these things can help you if you have like large number of applications. Alternatively, you can also deploy more than one collector, and if you do that, you would see every collector listed in the console. And then what will happen is the service will essentially let the collectors know which servers to hit, which of your servers to go and scan one after the other. And that way you can load balance your scanning, and that will fundamentally reduce the time it takes to scan your server, even if you have a very large number of servers out there.
Nice. The question I had was about data sources too, right? Customers may have this on-prem workload, or I think we provide a tool there, but you also have a tool for EC2, right? You have AMI, Army. I won't take sites, but a tool to analyze your workload there too as well, right? EC2.
Yes, so you have two basic options if you take the route of deploying our collector. So if you're deploying our collector, we provide you with an OVA, which is basically your VMware file to host a VM over VMware architecture, right? If you're on-prem, you can deploy our OVA file in VMware vCenter, and then once you have deployed that, you have a sort of a VM running with our collector on it. Now from there, you give it access to all the servers you want that collector to scan, and that's how it will hit all of your servers and do the analysis. Now, the other option that I was talking about is if you're already in AWS, instead of deploying an OVA file, you can actually find the AMI that we provide, and you can take that AMI, deploy an instance, and have the instance scan your other instances that are running, and it'll basically do the same thing. It is interesting to also call out at this point that if you do give a source code access and the collector is scanning your source code, it will not send the source code up on the server. The source code remains that scanning within the premises of the instance you have deployed as the collector. So if you do choose to do so, you can always tear down that instance and not worry about your source code being present on places you wouldn't want it to be.
I just wanted to bring up quickly a question from our audience here. If we use other third-party services for migration, can we use Migration Hub as well to monitor and plan migration?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we do with strategy recommendations is that as you begin using it, you have the option to import data. We provide you with a JSON template that you can use to fill it out with any other third-party tool you may have run to do the analysis of your server. You may have done some manual analysis. You may use a third-party tool to figure out what applications, what type of application infrastructure servers you're running on, right? And as long as you have that application, you can morph that data into our template, import it into our service, and we will do a very similar analysis as to what we would do if we were to run the collector instance appliance and scan your servers. The only call out or gotcha there would be that if you are looking to run source code analysis, then you have to go the collector route. We cannot support scanning your source code when we don't have access or when we don't have a collector deployed. The collector is the one thing that's doing the source code analysis. So if you go down the route of data import via JSON into the service, we don't have the collector running. And if you don't have a collector running, you won't be able to go to source code analysis.
Got it. So for the manual route, you can't do the source code analysis, but if you do the AMI route or the download the tool onto your VMware,
That's right.
so then you get that. I think that's a huge benefit, right? The source code, I think it's a pretty cool feature. So awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys. I don't have any other questions, but where can our audience go to find out more?
Absolutely. So you can look up the user guide and the console, and the two are linked together. If you go to the console in Migration Hub and go into strategy, you'll find links to our user guide, even our SDK APIs. At the same time, we did release an AWS News blog recently at the time of launch this week, actually. And that walks you through a bunch of details of how to set it up and how to run through that. So those two are your best places to go and get more information around how to set up and how to use our service.
Yeah, I highly recommend Stephen Roberts' blog post that you mentioned. He's on the chat here helping out customers too. And I started reading it. Tons of good information there. I highly recommend checking out the blog post too.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hasna. Thank you, Saleha. Great
Thank
demo,
you.
great presentation. And I just want to let the audience know too, we want to hear from you. Please fill out that survey. There's a link there. I believe the first 50 people get $10 AWS credit. So please take a moment, fill out that survey. We'd love to become better from hearing from your feedback.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Shashank, that is an awesome scarf.
I know. Thank you. I mean, it's all Halloween spirit, right? Yeah, it's a magical time.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing everyone again. Again, this is a weekly series every Friday.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a magical, spooky weekend. Have fun,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.